Yeah. If you can hear the sound of my voice, clap 2 times. If you could hear the sound of my voice, say dinosaur peanut butter.
Dinosaur peanut butter!
All right, I work with kids. Okay, recently I found myself sitting in a waiting room. And there was a TV in this waiting room that was tuned to the Oprah Winfrey Network. Now, I was trying not to get sucked in because I secretly like Oprah. And whenever I watch her show, I catch myself audibly agreeing and slowly nodding my head and sometimes taking notes. And you know that like 40 million other women are doing the same thing with me. And getting sucked into an Oprah show is kind of like crying over a Hallmark card. It just kind of feels manipulative, you know? But anyways, there's a woman on the show, and she's got really nice hair, and she says that you become the thing that you fear the most. That in being driven by fear, your thoughts are so powerful that they're powerful enough to create the very life you are worried about falling prey to. So by creating a bubble of positivity and hanging little positive plants on the ceiling and only inviting over positive people to eat meals prepared in positivity oil, that you will create a positive life. Do you all agree with that?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. It's not that hard to agree. But, well, I don't really disagree with that too much. For me, what rings more true is that you become the thing that you are obsessed with. Now, it's not always a straight line. Sometimes what you become is a reaction against what you are obsessed with. Saddam Hussein. Did you know he was an avid romance novelist? True story. Adolf Hitler was obsessed with drawing colorful Disney cartoons, especially Snow White. True story. And me? Well, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with sounds. Not the enjoyment of sounds, more on the disgust of sounds on the spectrum. Now, there were many sounds that not only did I not like or was annoyed with, but would cause me psychological disturbance. Certain sounds would evoke a hatred normally reserved for someone who has brought shame upon your family, or someone who cuts you off in traffic or steals your parking spot in San Francisco. In fact, honestly, there was a book it's still on the back burner called 100 Sounds That I Hate, that I wanted to write when I was a kid. Purely a list of sounds that I hate. It was going to be like an impulse item at the front of the bookstore. No, I'm talking things like camp counselor voices, dental tools, women's work shoes walking rapidly on a hard surface, leaf blowers and jackhammers, staccato back pats when you're hugging somebody. Can't stand that. And also, I mean, there's tons of words, but there's also certain words and phrases that can unexpectedly drive me crazy. One time on a road trip, my father and I stopped at a rest stop. We had the meal, we went to the bathroom, we were about to leave, and he stopped and he said, "Our bellies are full and our bladders are empty." That, I was done for the day. And I couldn't really explain why. I was just sitting there seething. I mean, part of it was the imagery of bloated bellies and my father's bladder muscles. But it was also the word itself, belly and bladder, just, it drove me crazy. But I'd say that The family dinner table is where the bulk of these sound issues play themselves out. At night, we would sit around the dinner table with my family, and we'd be eating a meal that my mother had made after a long, hard day of work. Hi, Mom. And as we sat and ate and made pleasant conversation and talked about our day, the only thing that I could focus on was the racket of sounds coming from their eating and drinking. The sharp, staccato knife and fork sounds on the plate as they cut into food. The subtle, juicy sounds of their tongues as they anticipated putting the food into their mouth. The whistling sounds made by the in and out breathing through their noses as they chewed. The smacking of lips and the gulping sounds as the food went down their throats. These sounds literally would assault me. They would creep up behind me, and they would jerk me around and slap me in the face. I would react physically, jerking my body around like a man possessed by an evil spirit, scrunch up my shoulders and grimace like in pain. Sometimes I would curse under my breath or not under my breath. I had no idea why these sounds affected me the way that they did. And I was the only one who heard these sounds. No one else seemed to care or notice. I felt like I was crazy. I'd pray for the meal to be over as fast as I could so I could run to my room and scream in my pillow. But before I could do that, I had to endure the mouth cleaning sounds after the meal was done and the accompanying faces. Sucking, clucking, clicking, chomping, slurping, burping. Like a grotesque symphony that premiered nightly at the dinner table. I would look on in horror and fascination as the faces would mangle into twisted shapes that would make Japanese Buto dancers jealous. But the worst sound of all, my Achilles heel, my kryptonite, the sucking and licking of fingers, which still haunts me to this day. And please don't be nervous after the show when we're eating together. I'm not going to hate you much, but like a rusty serrated kitchen knife being jammed repeatedly in and out of my eardrums. It would send me over the edge. But I was clever, and I developed a system for dealing with this. You see, at the exact moment that I saw that greasy little finger about to go up to the mouth, I would cough. And so, as I anticipated the finger going into the mouth, I would cough, and hopefully I would time it just right that it would mask the sound, and I would just hear the cough. The only problem with that was that everyone had a different style of licking their finger. Some people would sort of slowly linger, languidly chewing on their finger, and then slowly move on to the next one. I would try to anticipate it, like clearing my throat, getting ready, and then I'd cough. But some people, they would just go down the line. And I had no way of learning and memorizing everybody's style. So inevitably, I would fail, and I would end up a writhing, cursing mess of a prepubescent boy. As a result of these extreme reactions, I would often get sent to my room to eat my dinner alone. And in the comfort and solitude of my room, food no longer hot, but me steaming with rage, I would eat my food unnecessarily loud, mocking the sounds that my parents made, which drove me to madness, licking my chops ferociously, gulping, almost choking. It was as if I was presenting evidence to an invisible jury as to demonstrating the gross and indecent sounds which I was unfairly punished for having to endure. I was not an easy child. Now, the interesting thing is that in the last few years, Doctors and audiologists have come up with a name for this condition. Does anybody know? Okay, it's called misophonia. Everybody say misophonia. Misophonia. Okay, good. And it literally means the hatred of sounds. Not all sound, but sounds. Now, the causes are unknown, but they speculate that the brain processes certain sounds as fear or danger sounds, which affects the emotional system in the brain. And I feel affirmed and quite fascinated to know that I'm not crazy. Or if I am, I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. Of course, I've spent many hours speculating why I have this condition, everything from overexposure to early 80s music while in the womb, to some part of my brain that never fully evolved out of that primitive man thing that relied on sense of sound to detect danger, to not be eaten. But the thing is, sometimes I wonder, what good would it do if I knew that I had misophonia as a kid? Would that have changed anything? Or would it just be more fodder to heap onto the growing pile of acronyms that I had already accumulated by a young age? OCD, ADD, ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. I was always resistant to believing in these labels, but couldn't explain why until I got older, and then I realized that they were early signs of being an artist. And that they were actually hidden gifts. And there was nothing that really needed fixing. One of the hidden gifts of misophonia is that it gave me one of my first existential experiences. I am 7 years old. Okay, everybody just remember when you're 7 years old. Try to get in that body. I have a bowl haircut. Asthma. I have an inhaler. I'm at a sleepover pizza party at Jeremy Merkin's house, and after a rousing night of mother-supervised fun, everyone's fast asleep, and I'm listening to the sound of the clock ticking on the wall. When I'd sit in class at school and stare at the clock, as you all might know, time seems to get slower. Now I'm sitting listening to the sound of the clock, and the sound seems to get louder and louder the more I focused on it. Now at first it was vaguely comforting. It was a nice, gentle, steady rhythm, kind of like a heartbeat or a drip of water. It was kind of nice, but gradually I became aware that the sound wasn't stopping and that this would be the sound that I would be listening to all night long. And that permanence, it scared me. The thought of it never... But more than that, I was annoyed, and I was resentful that the sound was dominating the sonic space. I couldn't even hear my thoughts. Now, I know that I was starting to lose it when I felt that the clock was actually mocking me, challenging me. Testing me to ignore its incessant rhythm. So, I try. I close my eyes. I tried counting things. Farm animals. I tried doing long division problems in my head. I name all the friends that I think I have. None of it worked. All I can hear were the precious seconds of my life ticking away in the background. And then, as my eyes were closed, the ticking becomes the marching of an army of soldiers. Marching in unison, their footsteps menacing and oppressive. Then the image of the Grim Reaper appears out of nowhere. He's holding a scythe and he's tapping it on the floor in unison with the clock. And I'm sitting there in my Batman PJs and I'm wondering, how did this night go from watching Spaceballs and guzzling RC Cola to laying in my Batman PJs imagining my death? I mean, how can I be the only one plagued by this sound? So I look around and everyone's sleeping. Maybe there's another restless soul too aware for his age, laying awake thinking about mortality and time. No, I'm all alone. So I decide that the only solution is to stop time. I get up, go over to the clock, pull out the battery, put the clock back on the wall, ticking stops. A sense of guilty relief washes over me. And I creep back into bed, instantly falling asleep. And I dream that I am a rapper who makes his career off of exploiting his emotional and behavioral issues. Now, my DJ did not show up tonight, so I'm gonna need a little help. I need some rhythm help. You guys were good at clapping in the beginning. You think you guys can hold down a little groove? Yeah. Okay, basic. Just clap if you want. Ooh, that sounds good. Yeah. All right. All the ladies with ADD, put your hands in the air. Let me see ya. All the fellas with OCD, put your hands in the air. Keep it going. Yeah, my Holly. See, I was too young to understand it at the time, why I had reactions of the painful kind. People thought that I had emotional issues cause I walked around frowning with the ear full of tissues. Now today I know that I'm not alone cause I have a rare condition called misophonia. I don't get down, the nurture can be found for this profound hatred of sound on pound the ground, accepted like the world is round. Unexpected sounds bring me to my knees. Whistling, aggressive laughter, certain kinds of cheese. When a girl says thanks, but it comes out thanks. Opening cans of carbonated drinks. The sound of money counted in your hands. I could try to explain it, but you just won't understand. Don't mean to be nitpicky, it's not really my decision. It's not your fault that you're responsible for my derision. Ready for verse 2? Okay. Like an amateur masseuse on a really bad day. Certain words always rub me the wrong way. It's absurd that a word has the power to disturb. Makes me want to stampede like a buffalo herd. The word ovulation causes me trepidation, and I'm not a happy bloke when you say that you are stoked. I can keep my cool like Marlon Brando till you call a sandwich a Sammy or a Sando. Woo. Now, saying something's juicy that's not juice or food, the same goes for yummy, I just think that that is crude. It's not... I don't mean to be nitpicky, it's not really my decision. It's not your fault that you're responsible for my derision. Okay, so when I asked my mother to recall what it was like raising a child with misophonia, she responded in a way which reminds me why I love her so much, and because she didn't say all the things that she could have said, all the bad things that she could have said. But rather, she expressed empathy for the challenge of being in a loving relationship while experiencing rage and anxiety caused by the person you love and who loves you. Now, I couldn't help but feel a little guilty when she told me that she used to put popcorn under her tongue and wait for it to melt so that it would get soft, so that when she chewed, I wouldn't hear the crunching or chewing sound of popcorn, because that was one of my issues. But the novelist in her responded with a metaphor that the sound of love is never pure, that one has to navigate it, sometimes sublimate it, often ignore it, tear it down, and rebuild it in order to bask in its goodness. And that's what I've done with my obsession. I've navigated and rebuilt and rechanneled my hatred of sound, and now I've made a career as a sound artist and a musician and even a sound healer. And I try as much as I can to generate beautiful sounds and put those beautiful sounds into the world. And there are still those rare occasions when maybe I'll do a sound healing session at a yoga class and I'll be playing some bowls. And at the end of the class, a girl will walk by in a Lululemon outfit, and she'll walk by and she'll say, "Thanks." And I'll start to feel my blood boiling a little bit. But then I'll take a deep breath, and I'll think to myself, "Oh, what would Oprah do?" Thank you. Yeah!